Well, hi there, and welcome again to another edition of Coffee with Craig. I'm Craig Hamilton Parker. I'm a psychic medium, and we talk about the future and we talk about psychic things and spirituality and all sorts of things like that. But today I'm going to talk about cryptocurrency because some of you have watched some of my earlier predictions about what's going to be happening in 2026. And I've made a few predictions about cryptocurrency, and a lot of you have written to me saying, "Oh, please, Craig, can you flesh this out a bit?" So I'm going to sort of tell you some of my thoughts about this, but also for those of you that haven't the faintest interest in any of that type of topic, I'm also going to talk to you about why people like myself can't predict the lottery. For example, surely the easy thing to do for a psychic would be just predict the lottery and it's all done for. All your needs are catered for years and years to come. So I'm going to go into that as well, and why cryptocurrencies and things like that come into the line of things a little bit like gambling sometimes. Anyway, welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, welcome to the show again. Thanks for joining me. If you're here for the first time, do please subscribe. And if you're here over and over again, please always give me a thumbs up if you can. It helps that algorithm. Right. Okay. We're going to talk a bit about cryptocurrencies today because a lot of you have asked me to thrash out some of the things I've said. I'm going to talk a bit about that, but I will remind you that us psychics are fallible. I mention that all the time. A friend has done some research by AI about some of my predictions, and used AI to sort of trail through all my videos and say what percentage, high or low, would I get as correct, and it gave me 85%, 85 to 90%. But I don't really hold with that, actually, because I think it depends how you put the information in and what you read as a correct and what you read as a fail. But with cryptocurrency, it's a bit more win or lose, isn't it? So this is not financial advice that I'm giving to you today. This is really kind of a synthesis of what I'm feeling about things. Okay, so that's the disclaimer out the way. And so I spoke about the feeling that I have, that I feel that cryptocurrency is going to take a bit of a hit in 2026. So what I'm basically seeing in essence, first of all, is that there's going to be a short kind of sharp shock early in the year, very early in the year, probably around January time. It could spread into spring. Timing is always very, very difficult. And of course, with cryptocurrencies, absolutely essential. So sorry about that. But I feel it's the beginning part of the year. And some of these smaller cryptocurrencies are going to get hit with this. By this, I mean some of the marginal coins, what I think they call them hyper tokens, and some of those are really at risk of going to the wall. So I advise you to be very cautious what you invest in. Keep well away from any of these get rich quick schemes that people seem to want to tell people that they can do with crypto. So the high sort of blue chip type cryptos, the regulated ones, the high liquidity coins, are likely to survive the storm, and then benefit from the big cleanup that comes after this. So that's my first overall overview of what I feel is going to happen with this. Like I say, we're going to move on to other things in a moment, because lots of people come to see me asking about crypto coins, and I'm always very, very wary to make predictions about crypto coins or investments, and I'll tell you why in a moment, and why any psychic would have exactly the same issues. But anyway, so these are my feelings. in the early part of 26, around the time of this, there's going to be a lot of big changes going on in the rules that govern these things. And I feel those are going to bring this big, sharp shock into play in the crypto markets. We've already seen how vulnerable they can be. In late 2025, I think it was, the trade wars and political decisions kind of knocked billions off the market almost overnight. I think it is. It's around about October time, which I made my predictions before, saying there'd be an adjustment then. But I see a big steep fall, particularly hitting Bitcoin. Now, I said that earlier, and actually I had a quick look in the newspapers today, and it said that Bitcoin's been quite gone down quite a lot at the time of making this video. I'm making this video on the 2nd of December 2025. So there's already it's already started to happen a bit. So there's, but I feel that Bitcoin, I was saying what I was saying before, is I felt that Bitcoin would be quite severely hit. Now it's not badly hit at the moment, but I was feeling there would be a point where it would be quite severely hit, but it would also bounce back. So this won't be the kind of, this isn't Armageddon for it all. This isn't the end of crypto or anything like that. It's a kind of a reshaping of things, I feel. That's my feelings about where it's going to go. So those sort of smaller ones, the fashion-driven sort of coins, including some of the AI and the meme projects, as it were, I see as very vulnerable. Some will go to the wall, and privacy coins face an outright regulatory squeeze, I feel, and I think that will come in and damage that part of the market quite severely. So I think anything that's like an algorithmic or weekly backed stable coins, all that looks pretty fragile, right? So those are my thoughts on that. But on the other hand, I see Bitcoin surviving, Ethereum and a handful of the serious infrastructure chains surviving, and a few sort of the more boring, sort of fully regulated stable coins becoming stronger as part of the new rules-based system comes in. So I think these rules are going to be but this was going to shake the market up, I feel. People don't know what way that's going to go, but I feel that there's going to be sort of this regulation coming in. And again, like I say, I'm no financial expert, you know. These are my this advice is really coming from my intuition. I'm saying really also that these kind of markets behave more like gambling than destiny, and that's why I'm going to explain some of that in a minute, because I say there's no karma on the roulette wheel, and I'll explain that in a minute too, because I think this is something we need to think about when thinking about investments. So I always say, when people come to me with a great list of, Craig, I want you to tell me about this investment, this investment, this investment, which ones I should do, which ones I shouldn't. I'm often very stumped by that, because it's not necessarily accessible to clairvoyance. So I'm giving it a shot today, but I want to give a lot of caveats with this, if I'm honest, because it's one of those things that is slightly, it's not people talk about all this abundance business and abundance thinking and will make things work. These things are slightly different to that, the way they work. But anyway, let's just go back to what I was talking about here. So there's going to be a sharp Bitcoin shock around the early part of 2026, and with all of the other cryptocurrencies as well, as I feel it's to do with rules or something changing. And I get the feeling also there's going to be an adjustment economically too, with all the AI investment that's going on. Now, billions are being invested in the infrastructure, particularly for AI. And I sense there's going to be a bit of a shake-up with that, with the banks, because billions are being poured in, but are billions coming out quick enough to warrant the investments? I think some markets are going to get very shaky with that. But some of these AI companies and these tech companies, they have as much money as small countries, so they won't take the fall. It will be the smaller investments. So you've got to be very careful where you put your money with the smaller stuff. I would keep to the bigger organizations if you're putting your money into things like this. The safer bets, I think, are important through 2026, and of course that's not the way big money's made. However, people when have come to me and asked me about these things, my general feeling has been, between multiple countries really, that we're going to see improvements in the value of property, even if businesses, if politics and politicians try to sort of hit the housing market kind of a little bit as they've been doing here in the UK. I feel property prices are going to start to rise, and it's probably a safer bet to put your money in that, because the rises are steady and I feel secure and going up at a pretty good rate, rather than some of these rather dodgy fashionable sort of things that people put things in at the moment. So that's my thoughts about this. Now, I can't be giving you a list of crypto things. I don't have enough knowledge to do that anyway, but let alone be able to assess it and give you a clairvoyant insight. But I just gave you the general overall trend of Bitcoins. And now I want to tell you a few thoughts about why these things are perhaps in some ways out of the view of psychics. I know a lot of psychics out there kind of specialize and have special type of special chat rooms and special newsletters that are just about cryptocurrency, and this psychic can see this and see that. Now, I used to work in advertising, and part of what I did in advertising was working for financial services organizations. Now, I didn't have great knowledge about the economics of these things. I just was the designer. We used to design annual reports mainly for some of the big blue chip sort of banks and things like that. I specialized in making annual reports seem interesting. I make anything to seem interesting if you're clever. And it was fun actually doing that. But I got to know a lot of the people, and I used to ask them about investments and things. And they used to say, some of them used to almost sort of say with a tongue in cheek, haven't you heard about the dartboard effect, Craig? There was some tests done where investors were pitched against someone just with a dartboard, where they would throw the dart at the board to see which was the best investments. And the one that was throwing darts randomly got better results. So there's an awful lot of fakeness, isn't there? I could say another word about the way these things work out, and investment skills and so forth. So a lot of it's the luck of the draw, I think. So, so I was thinking about this, and I wanted to share with you some of this idea, for example. Now, I've done some situations before where I have been doing a demonstration in front of an audience, and I've almost tested the spirit world to see how far we can go with this. And I've said to the spirit world, help me do this. And I would go around people in the audience when it was a really good energy and the evening was working very well. And I'd go to various people in the audience and say, I'm going to give you the 6 lottery numbers that you do every week. Who does who here, put your hand up, has regular lottery numbers that they do each week? And I would go round them and say, your numbers are 23, 49, 64, whatever it was. I give them their 6 numbers. And first one, I got all 6 right. The next one, I got 5 right. And the next one, I got 3 or 4 right. And I thought, the odds of getting that are extraordinary. But I couldn't give them a single number, of course, of what's going to be next week. So that's what you really want to know, not what your regular numbers are. No, but it was an interesting experiment I did, because I felt and kind of proved it to myself there, that what you're able to get is useful in that respect, because it gave some proof of the reality of that could have been telepathy or spirit contact, but of the truth of these extrasensory things. But it was not going to give me the ability to change and alter things. So I was been thinking about that, and I was thinking, well, why is that? Is it because people's karma could be interfered with that? But then you think about it, and you think about the sort of people that win the lottery, for example, and they're always, very often, you get some lovely people win it as well, but quite often very unworthy people seem to win the lottery. Absolute wasters who've thrown the money away, or people where it's made their lives completely miserable because they're just not capable of dealing with that huge amount of money. Now, that is because, as I said, I feel there's no karma attached with gambling, and no karma attached with the roulette wheel. They're not karmic events. They are random events. And this is something that I think ties in, if you look more deeply into some of the ideas of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Christianity, that perhaps karma governs the soul's evolution, but not the outcome of random mechanical events. So from a lottery draw, it has no moral dimension. It has no built-in spiritual lesson. It's not connected to dharma or or any soul contract. It's a mechanical probability, not a karmic process. And this could be exactly the same we could apply to my attempt here to tell you about cryptocurrencies, because there's not a spiritual element with it, if you see what I mean. This is why sometimes a saint may lose on every ticket and someone morally questionable may win many, many times or many millions. It's not about worthiness, it's about mathematics. At least that's what I tell myself when I buy a lottery ticket and it fails. So I think it's interesting to think about this, particularly when you go to psychics and start expecting psychics to come up with miraculous ways to make you lots of money. Like I got a little bit cross when someone wrote to me and said, I've been betting on your predictions, Craig, and I've been getting some good results. I think, well, that's going to damage, in a way, spiritually, my ability to make predictions. Because others have thought about this as well. I think it was Sri Aurobindo said something like, destiny is the outworking of the soul's intention, not the actions of nature. Yogananda said something, I've got these actually in front of me now. Karma is exacting, but it governs the lessons of life, not the throw of the dice. See what I mean? They've spoken the similar idea there, that karma shapes the inner journey in our life, and random chance shapes the outer noise of the journey through this life. So a lottery win may not be karmic, but somehow it's a bit hard to express, really, because some souls collapse under wealth, don't they? And some souls become generous under wealth. So there's lessons to be learned in humility, I suppose. When you collapse under wealth, there's lessons to be learned about compassion by being generous. Sometimes it creates loneliness, and lessons in detachment can be found from this. Sometimes we lose everything, and lessons in discipline or non-attachment can come from this. So you see, these are the soul questions that come. And I think that to think that it's you gain money through worthiness, you may gain money for the different reasons than worthiness. It might be not a boon, but a curse to you, having a lot of money sometimes. So there's this sort of kind of shadow karma with it, really, the karma of opportunity, in my opinion. There was a word in India, and I think the word adrusta or something, unseen consequences, a Vedic word. Have I got it right? Adrusta, I think it's pronounced, unseen consequences. So when good fortune comes to you, accidental blessings, opportunities, luck, chance events, meeting someone by accident, sudden fortune, they see these not always as rewards, but tests of character. And I think this is where the clairvoyant gift comes in as well, because this clairvoyant gift is here to help a person spiritually move through life, and not just to bring us good fortune and money and things like this. So this is why I think sometimes unworthy people may win the lottery. The universe isn't rewarding them. The universe is testing them in many ways through the burden of sudden fortune. And I think it's important to look at it that way in many ways, because our natural intention, our ego naturally wants fairness, but evolution, as it were, I suppose, wants experience. I think it was Rama Maharishi also said, life is not fair according to the ego's measure. It is exact according to the soul's. You see what I mean by that? Sudden wealth may accelerate someone's spiritual downfall, for example. It may expose hidden flaws in a person's life. It might teach detachment through suffering, perhaps, give them a chance to grow, or simply give them less than they think. Like many winners are very often miserable. So there's a lot of hidden things with this, and that's why when people come to myself and say, Craig, I want you to do this, and make my life better by giving me all these answers that are going to make me a rich person, maybe the spirit world seems to so silent on that sometimes with me, or my intuitive gift is not as strong. I might, if it's correct in a course of a reading, I might say, look, you've got to sell that house or do something like this, and give practical advice to someone. But the spirit world are trying to do it in such a way that it's going to help the person's spiritual progress, not give a list of investments that you should make. You see what I mean? So there's no karma, no emotional imprint, no destiny in a random number generator, for example, is there? And again, that's the same sort of idea if you were to test these psychic skills. If a scientist wants to test, okay, Craig, we're going to prove it. If you're right or wrong, if you're a fraud or you've really got something here, tell me the numbers on a random generator. And I'm sure I ever tried it, but to be honest, I don't think it would work, because somehow there's no spirit involved in it. And that's why when JB Rhine, for example, started to do all the tests in ESP, and where you're reading Zener cards, man, Zener invented those. These are the ones with all these circles and squares and wiggly lines and things. They're so unemotional on one level, they're so non-spiritual on another, they're so clinical, which is exactly what science needs, because it needs to be able to repeat an experiment, but they're worthless when it comes to the way this kind of spiritual gift works. And that's, like I said to Richard Dawkins when we were arguing, I said, well, science is the wrong tools to measure these things. This has the wrong tools to measure consciousness, for example, because we're talking in another realm of thinking, in a way. And that's not a get out. I'm just trying to explain why I feel that these things are kind of linked to spirituality, Yeah, so a lot of people have talked about this before. Vivekananda spoke about it. Rudolf Steiner talked about it. Even the Tibetan Book of the Dead have mentioned these sorts of ideas, because you can see, for example, you can see sort of relationships, illness, world events, predictions, and things like that, but not the spin of the roulette wheel. And the echo of psychics is not the reflection of mind. It's we got to get into the spirit. Psychic is of the soul, So when you come to see a psychic medium, come to find out about the spiritual things. My evidence is highest if I'm giving messages about life after death, and I'm giving proof to help someone through a difficult life and a difficult bereavement. The evidence becomes astonishing then. It's also high if you're helping someone through difficult issues and problems, and you need to see the way forward. But if someone's just coming to you to work out their cryptocurrency bets, it don't work quite so well. You might get something, and let's see what happens with my predictions ahead. I haven't been able to give you very specific predictions for what's happening with coins, just my general feel of the trend of things. So I think we can pick that up as a psychic. But when it comes to lottery wins and things like that, remember, they're not karmic events, they're mechanical probabilities. And karma governs meaningful events in our lives, not random numbers. So sometimes it's people who don't seem deserving make big wins in life. And the win isn't the reward, it's the way they handle it that becomes the lesson. And the same thing applies to this sort of craze that there is out there at the moment about abundance. We only need to think about abundance and we draw it into our life. And there's loads of books, loads of courses, loads of YouTubes that tell you just got to think rich and you'll be rich. Yes, a positive attitude, optimism will bring good things into your life. But is the reward you want really material? What should come into your life should be the things that are important with this life. This life is a journey, you could say, from love, through love, to love. You know, if we think like that as the world, wouldn't we be happy people? You could say it another way. This life is from consciousness, through consciousness, to consciousness. There's another way of looking at it, isn't it? And we could see the whole world for its reality then. Or if you're religiously minded, you could say this world is from God, through God, to God. And then we can perhaps understand that, you know, we should give up the fruits and not worry so much about making money, but actually find our way to true happiness, which is oneness with this universe, which is acceptance of this universe, which is us understanding that everything that comes into our life, good and bad, is all helping with our spiritual development, and be very grateful for this amazing human life. Well, there we go. I started talking about cryptocurrencies and I went off on one, but I hopefully find that helpful and interesting, those of you that are kind of interested in this from a spiritual standpoint. And again, you want to keep this channel going, we all need a bit of cash along the line, so that's always grateful if you can become a patron and support the channel a little bit, and that helps to keep that flow going through our lives. So do have a look in the description below for that. And thanks again for joining me on the show. See you again soon. Bye for now. If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, The Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism. And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short. I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today. Marvelous person she is. She does something extraordinary that could even put her life a little bit at risk with the way she did this. Okay. Is there something also there that's not being spoken about fully? Did they also discover something with Kate that wasn't quite right? A huge swarm of people knocking the doors of Europe and America. And I feel that Ukraine conflict is going to be a kind of a grinding conflict that goes on and on. I also feel that there's something going to happen in the Middle East as well. I feel as if there's going to be a sudden and unexpected thing happen in the Middle East. So I feel they're going to take it into their own hands, and I feel we're going to get a strike from Israel. This is going to be one of the significant things in 2023. I've said it before and I say it again. I feel Israel, with the help from the USA, will strike the Iranian nuclear facilities. I said that there would be an earthquake that would shake New York. At this time, I've been sensing that for a while that there's going to be a big earthquake of some sort. And this could well come up during April period.
I'm seeing a bridge collapsing, actually the whole infrastructure of it going.
I predict something very dark happens to President Joe Biden. He's been pulled from power, sacked, as it were, and quite close to the election time. But I kind of sense it's more to do with illness, perhaps, senility, and people stopping him because of that. So it could even be that a new candidate will run for the presidential nominee. I predict that Trump will win the November 2024 election. And I feel very strongly that the black vote is going to move towards Trump. See him as a sort of a bit of a cool guy. I can't see Trump being put in jail despite what they're throwing at him. I can't see a jail sentence with him. But I get the feeling one of the candidates has an attempt on the candidate's life. Could there have been a plan to assassinate either him or Trump, perhaps? There's going to be an assassination attempt on Trump, I think. That will fail, but he might maybe get wounded or something like that. A hit or attack on our airplanes, on passenger flights or even freight flights. Because I also had at a similar time, I was also seeing this image of helicopters on fire as well. I seem to see like the west of America on fire and the east of America underwater, huge winds. And I actually saw, just like we had a major problem here in the UK where a tower block went up on fire, I see a tower block deserted. In Sweden, I saw Stockholm, and I saw the ship there. I think it's called Vasa, and I felt as if there was an attempt to try to set that boat on fire. And there will be mass layoffs. He's going to do to the government what he did to X, which is basically, let's pretty much sack everybody and let's re-employ those that are any good. I feel that Musk and Trump ultimately fall out. So I predict that they'll have a major fallout in the end. And more government control in cryptocurrencies. And you know, I saw this image as well of the Eiffel Tower against the backdrop of burning Paris. Is there a big fire in Paris? And you know, like I say, like that Santa Monica where I thought the pier was going up on fire, that was obviously symbolic perhaps of Santa Monica going up on fire, because the fires are right on the doorstep of Santa Monica, is that there's going to be a major earthquake around both sides of the Pacific Rim. But it is like that. I felt as if there was something, a big plate move that affected right over from America to Japan. I saw a building burning in Hong Kong. Is this a terrorist attack? Is this a false flag? An arson attack of some sort? I saw big tall buildings on fire. Not masses of them, but like a couple of blocks of high-rise on fire.